Welcome to the SDA Housing Podcast, brought to you by NDIS Property Australia. Before starting this episode, we need to provide a general disclaimer. Information contained in this podcast is general in nature only. It does not take into account the objectives, financial situation, or needs of any particular person. You need to consider your financial situation and needs before making any decisions based on the information in this podcast. And you should consider seeking independent and professional advice for your personal circumstances. All right, let's begin.
Good afternoon, everyone. Maddie here for the SDA Housing Podcast, which is a show that explains, highlights, guides, and brings awareness about all things specialist disability accommodation in the ever-changing NDIS world. This show is brought to you by NDIS Property Australia, and today I have Courtney with me again, and also the lovely Rania from our office. We're going to touch on a few different things today, but it all comes under support work and all things support work, our experiences and in the support worker industry, challenges that we may have faced and so forth. So we're going to head straight into talking about our experience in the industry. So we might start with Rania.
Hi, everyone. It's really nice to be here. This is my first podcast. I have experience in the support work industry, not as a support worker, but I did do a lot of rostering and admin tasks. What I want to touch base on today is just the rostering side of everything. I have experienced unpredictability of shift cancellations, finding suitable support workers for clients. Availability can always add another layer of complexity. Just those basic rostering behind the scenes of rostering factors. Yeah. Courtney, did you just want to share your experience at all today?
Yeah, I was a support worker for about 2 years, and I had a main focus on mental health, and I supported a lot of people with all sorts of different mental health complications. I supported people of all ages, including really young children, and I did a lot of support in community access. I helped with hospital transitions, even in supported independent living homes. It was really great getting to see people grow their confidence, experience new things, and honestly build their independence.
Yeah, and following on a little bit from that, one thing I noticed as a support worker, or my short time as a support worker, was the little things that you notice as a support worker. For example, there may be something that when you're first put on a shift with a person living with a disability, you've got a main goal. You've been given a main goal that they want to focus on budgeting. So you set a goal with the person living with a disability to do budgeting for their weekly grocery shopping. And at first, it may seem like, or they may think of it as a hard task to do, but then with practice and with support and with help, by the end of the week, they're able to do something that they may have longed to be able to do for quite some time. So it's being able to watch those small steps that they take to increasing their independence and seeing the shift and seeing the positive outlook that they may have on those small tasks just after a little bit of help. Another thing that I think we are going to touch on a little bit is maybe some challenges that we may have come across when it comes to being a support worker or in the rostering component, and any challenges that we may have faced that we feel other people might be interested to know. So we might start again with Rania. What challenges are what are some challenges that you faced in rostering?
From my experience as someone working in the office, as someone doing lots of rostering for the support workers and people living with disabilities, one of the examples is, for example, if a client chooses to disregard a particular support worker, it is then up to rostering to fill in that shift urgently, which can sometimes be such a struggle because this could also affect current support workers' hours. They may need to stay overtime. if we can't find any support workers available, we may need to reach for external fill-in support workers, which can all be such an inconvenience to both the client and the support worker, as well as the person rostering. It can be such a stressful part of it because availability always comes in the factor of finding someone to fill in, as well as a suitable support worker that understands the certain needs of that client. It's all of these factors are all included in filling in a shift. And I think sometimes when we're just out of options, our last option is to reach for external support workers, but that is never the best option.
And I guess sometimes it can't be helped a support worker having to cancel a shift last minute. Of course, sometimes that cannot be helped. However, it is so important to a rostering team for support workers to really try their hardest to give the rostering team as much notice as possible so that we eliminate the risk of upsetting both the client and anyone else involved, the carers. It is very important to give as much notice when it comes to cancelling shifts from both a client's perspective and a support worker's perspective.
I just want to touch base on
a bit. No.
We also do have the client cancelling these shifts sometimes, which can also be an inconvenience to the support worker as well because of their timetable. They may have a shift after that client that may be affected by this. Both parties can cancel shifts, which can cause a lot of stress in the background for us that need to allocate these shifts for everyone.
Thank you for touching on that, Rania. I just want to, I guess, touch on one thing that I find quite frustrating. One thing that I've noticed that I get frustrated with is people assuming that persons with disabilities can't do certain things rather than assuming that they can. There are, unfortunately, people out there that just assume that these people living with a disability can't do something such as
cooking.
Yeah, such as cooking a meal for themselves. Just because they suffer from a disability does not mean that they can't do something. Why don't we change the way that everyone thinks? Or why can't people change their perspectives and instead of assuming that they can't, assume they can? Imagine what it's like being on the other side. Imagine someone turning to you or sitting in a doctor's appointment. Hey, sitting in a doctor's appointment as a support worker with a client, and the doctor automatically assumes that they need to speak directly to the support worker instead of speaking to the client. Assume that they have the understanding to know what you're saying and they can talk back. They've got a voice. Talk to the client. Don't talk to the support worker. If the client is not capable of having a conversation with the doctor, then the support worker will step in and say, unfortunately.
Also, the person with a disability is able to turn to the support worker and ask for support in that situation if they require it. It shouldn't automatically be assumed that the support worker is there to speak and act on behalf of them, because that is unfair.
That's exactly right. Exactly right. Do you have any challenges that you may have faced as a support worker?
Yes, I've had a few different challenges over time, and a lot of the big ones that I have faced have been ones regarding clients reporting harming themselves and having to then write incident reports and do follow-ups. And there's a lot of background paperwork involved in that, as well as just trying to make sure that that person is okay and that they are going to be safe. I also, while working in a supported independent living home, I was kicked out of the house on shift by the person with the disability. And while that can happen, and it is their right to decide who they would like to support them and who they would like in their home, it did mean that this person who has 24/7 support was then left alone inside the house. And I just had to wait out the front and hope that everything that was going on in there was okay until someone could come to take over from my shift.
I do have experience in a similar situation where I did have to fill in a shift, which was that exact same situation. And it could be very late at night. Usually people are asleep or unavailable.
Yeah. And it's just very stressful for everyone involved because the person who has been kicked out doesn't know what's going on. The person who's arriving on shift also doesn't know what's going on inside.
It's a very sticky situation to try and navigate through, not only for, support workers themselves and the rostering team and the client themselves, but, there's a lot of different elements that go into it.
Yeah,
and
sometimes
it's really hard to navigate through a situation like that.
Providing out of options of who you can have fill in that shift when you do have to reach out to an external fill-in support workers. Usually they do not have any experience with this client, or they may not even have experience with the client's needs. So it's a very, very difficult choice to make. But if it is a 24-hour client, it's very difficult because you need someone to be there to supervise the client, to ensure that they are all right. Yeah.
And obviously, if necessary, calling emergency services is allowed.
Yeah. Yeah. So I guess following on from that, there are, and I'm sure we can all agree, there are many different things that support workers get rostered on for. There's things such as personal care assistance. It might be mobility assistance, medication management, help with meal preparation, household chores, community participation, taking them out into the community to do, whether that may be group activities in a group environment, or maybe they want to go to the movies, taking them out to the movies, anything community-based under community participation. Emotional support as well, just purely providing companionship and emotional support is very important for people living with disabilities. Skill development, helping clients practice skills learned in therapy sessions. Providing transportation to various activities and appointments, especially health appointments. It is very important that clients are able to get to and from all these appointments that are included, or not appointments, but all of the different health related appointments that are organised through your NDIS plan. It is very important for them to have a safe and secure way to get to and
even just a way to decompress in the car afterwards.
Yeah. What about active and inactive overnight support, Courtney? I've never done an overnight support shift, but I think you may have.
Yeah, so I've done a fair few inactive overnight shifts. Pretty much it works the same way as a regular shift would. I did them mainly in supported independent living homes.
Also known as SIL, yeah.
Yeah. So I would arrive on shift, I'd do whatever my client wanted to do for the afternoon into the night. If they wanted to go out to any shops, if they wanted to go to a movie, see a friend, we'd go do that.
It all comes down to their choice and control too.
Yeah. Cook some dinner, sit down, watch a movie together. And then depending on what time the client would go to bed and what time the overnight shift started, you would then be able to go to sleep for a certain period of that shift in an inactive overnight. Mm-hmm. For active overnights, it is a bit different, and you are required to be awake during that. Even in inactive overnight shifts, you are required to wake up if the participant needs you at any point during the night.
Yeah. And look, inactive overnight shifts, they usually last 8 hours, don't they?
Yeah, it's about that.
It's anywhere from 10 p.m. to 6 a.m., isn't it?
Sometimes it can vary, but they should all last 8 hours.
All right. What experiences have we got in losing a client due to them, choosing to disengage with you as a support worker? How does that make us feel? Does that, I guess, in my experience, I guess it sort of makes you sit back and reflect upon everything that you did and sort of look at it and review what you could have done better. It does make you feel like you've let the person living with a disability down. Would you say that that's how you feel?
Yeah. I think it's also that if you are working with someone with a disability, for your clients, you have had them for a long period of time, you do create a bonds and you may get attached. And it's just such a change letting go of someone that you've been seeing practically several times a week. And that can affect someone extremely.
You definitely do build relationships with your client that when they either stop their service or whatever happens in that situation, it is hard because, you have been seeing them at least once a week or multiple times a week, and you've seen so much growth and you've learned things together. Like, you've experienced new things with them.
I think as a support worker, you do need to understand it's nothing really that you're doing. Sometimes it can just be clients transition to a different care setting.
Or your availability. Maybe your availability doesn't align with what the client is needing. Maybe they need someone who can do weekends and you can't. You're not available on weekends. It could come down to a mixture of a bunch of different things. It is not always personal, and at the end of the day, it is the client's choice and control.
Yeah.
So, and it's unpredictable. Like, you can't predict things like that happening. So
I've also had situations where clients' funding doesn't come through or it doesn't get renewed. And that's really hard because knowing that they need that support and they can no longer access it is really hard on everyone involved.
I've experienced so much of those, and it's honestly very upsetting.
Well, it's heartbreaking because as that one-on-one person that has spent so much time with that client, that they need that support. And it's crucial for them to keep building on their independence. But if their funding is cut or they have exhausted their funding or anything has happened, then they're left without support. And it breaks your heart as a support worker. It really does, because you can see that they rely heavily on a support worker. And then the minute the funding has been exhausted, you can't do anything,
Support workers are such a crucial part.
They are
in the industry. And I think that taking the emotional aspect as well, it's so deep that we all need to understand.
And support workers are a crucial part in helping clients achieve their goals in their NDIS plan as well. Yeah. Look, I think we've spoken about many things today. It was really lovely to have you girls here with me today. Thank you for coming along.
Thank you.
And I hope you guys have a great week. We will chat again later. Thank you, guys. Thanks everyone for listening in.
We hope you enjoyed this episode. Please make sure you are subscribed and following us so you can keep in the loop with all of our upcoming episodes. We would really appreciate it if you could leave us a 5-star rating, a written review, and to share this podcast with those that could benefit. Until next time, catch you on the next episode.